Hello everyone, my name is Siddharth Shukla from Mirchi Plus. I'm extremely elated and extremely happy as I have with me the Academy Award, the Emmy nominated filmmaker, the director of The Romantics of Netflix, Smriti Mundhra. A very warm welcome, Smriti.
Hello.
Hi. Smriti, I want to start by asking, how did you get Aditya Chopra to talk in front of the camera?
It was probably the hardest aspect of making the series was getting him to agree to do that. But ultimately, I think he could see that in making something that was meant to be sort of the definitive, capture definitively the journey of his father and his career and his impact, that that story couldn't be told without his participation. So that's what ultimately convinced him.
Yeah, and the series has 35, big names, 35 stars. How long did it take? How long did it take, to gather all of them and to, individually go? What was the process like? How did you start with it?
Well, the entire process of making the series has been 3 years. That includes editing and everything. The process of getting the participants, involved wasn't as difficult as you might imagine. Just people were, knowing that we had the blessing of the studio, to make the series. People were, very willing to participate. But of course, scheduling was a challenge. So thankfully we had a great producing team that handled all of that.
Yeah, and also I think it was short. Like I'm sure the COVID during the COVID times also there must have been some difficulties, no?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So we started filming before COVID and then had, of course COVID happened, so we had to adjust for that.
Yeah. You've worked with such big names. You've been, you have directed, you've made such big shows. But how was working with Shah Rukh Khan different from the rest? What was your experience like?
It was great experience, working with all of these amazing stars, and icons, of the industry, many of whom, I am a huge fan of, just personally, but definitely Shah Rukh Khan, was a different experience, just being a super fan, since I was a teenager, and how many of his roles really sort of defined my upbringing and my childhood. It was a challenge to then, sit in front of him with my professional face, and conduct that interview. But he was incredibly gracious, very kind and very generous with his time.
Do you think like we hear a lot about Shah Rukh Khan's chivalry and his good gestures. Did you find any difference that between him and the rest of the actors, because like that makes him the Shah Rukh Khan that he is today? Besides, of course, being a great artist.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely, just he has a real sense of hospitality, we filmed in his home and he was very welcoming, to my crew and to me, and his staff made everyone, feel comfortable and settled. And then of course, when he arrived on set, he knew the name of every single person on the crew,
Oh,
yeah, which was pretty amazing.
wow.
And just like never really made us feel like he had anywhere to be but there with us. So that was very much appreciated.
Wow, that's really nice. Um, so like how did the idea of making this docu-series pop up, and how did it all start? As in, like of course you talked about the process, and but the seed. How did it start basically?
Yeah, I wanted to do something on sort of the history and impact of Hindi cinema for a long time, as a sort of lover of Hindi films and also a film student and now a filmmaker. I felt like this was an aspect of our global cinema culture that um, doesn't get as much appreciation as it should,
Yeah.
and I wanted to make something that really celebrated, the sort of cinema from our part of the world, and that has really sort of defined and has deeply resonated with audiences from our part of the world. And I felt that there was no one better to tell that story through than Yash Chopra. Just his career uh, spanned so many decades, so many different genres. He started making films, shortly after partition, and then and independence, and then continued making films, into the 2010s. So,
Yeah.
uh, it's hard to find another filmmaker whose career had so much longevity and so much impact.
Yeah, talking about Hindi films, do you think, like, because in India, currently we see people, filmmakers especially, of course there are still amazing filmmakers like Sanjay Leela Bhansali and Karan Johar that are doing amazing work, and especially that are keeping the Indian culture and the way of Indian storytelling intact.
Yeah.
However, there is a more shift towards realism in Indian cinema as well. What do you think? What, like, should there be a balance, and how is it, how do you see it in the future?
I mean, I have no crystal ball to predict where things will go in the future, but I know that things are cyclical, and there may be sort of a trend towards more realism in our cinema now, which is good. I think that's a good thing. We may come back to a place of those grand romances, that we've grown up with.
Or
You
aspirational?
know, yeah, our aspirational,
Yeah.
yeah, cinema that we've grown up with. But ideally there will be a balance. We don't have to choose between an action film or a romance or a more a grounded film that's more grounded in sort of the realities of our world. Hopefully, our our appetites are diverse enough, and our the content that's produced is diverse enough to tap all of those things.
Yeah, we are talking about the romantics, and Yash Chopra, who is also called the father of romance in Indian cinema. We've all grown up. No, I won't even say grown up. Like he's been making, like you mentioned, movies since we don't know when. But there is one thing that is constant in Yash Chopra, that has been constant in Yash Chopra cinema, and that is the representation of women. Many actresses, we hear often hear interviews that many actresses actually dreamt of being a Yash Chopra heroine. Katrina Kaif in the Romantic said, the women characters are led, they are very petite yet strong, which is very great. But there is one also common thing, which is chiffon saris in glaciers, such cold temperatures. Do you think, was it fair for heroines to go through all of that, and while men were all decked up and covered?
Uh-huh. No, of course not. Of course not. I mean, that's maybe one, aspect of the aspirational quality that anyone could, dance around in the snow-capped mountains so comfortably in a chiffon sari, But yeah, no, of course not. I mean, but I think these are details, like Yash Chopra, as much as, his characters, his films always had a balance of really complex characters and sort of themes that were very ahead of their times, packaged in sort of a wrapper of fantasy and of aspiration, and realistic or not, who can ever forget
Yes.
that image, of
Yeah, of course.
Devi in her chiffon sari, in Switzerland. So yeah.
Yeah, right. So, one question I have is, we have almost all the big stars that are present. We have them in the romantics. We see the absence of Rekha ma'am, who was a large and integral part of Yash Chopra films. In fact, Yash Chopra has given one of the biggest hits and cult movies with Rekha ma'am, like Silsila. Was there any specific reason and, like, for that?
No, no specific reason at all. Honestly, we had to condense, many, many years of history, many films, a lot of material into 4 1-hour episodes. And Silsila is just a film I chose not to focus on. More specifically, every film that I focused on was more about that it played a pivotal role in Yash Chopra's career, or sort of the larger story of the studio, or of what was happening in India at the time. So oftentimes, like I don't think I could, if I had done a deep dive into every hit that Yash Chopra gave or every cult classic, the series would have been 10 episodes long. So ultimately I had to pick and choose sort of what I focused on, and that was the reason.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, you're right. Um, there are these sudden people have this notion of Bollywood film, which is also mentioned in the romantics. They actually most of the times they make Bollywood as a genre, and
Mhm.
not the people worldwide. I'm saying people have this notion that the sudden breakout into singing and dancing doesn't make really sense, but then eventually it's a way of storytelling, like everyone said in the series. What do you feel like? How do you feel the world perceives it, and should it be continued? And what's your take on it?
Are you talking about the word, or are you talking about Hindi films?
Hindi films.
Of course, they should be continued. I think it's they bring so much joy, to so many people all over the world. And look, at the end of the day, I do think that there is becoming more acceptance and better understanding of what Hindi cinema is
Yeah.
around the world. And as much as there's still a tendency to just flatten it to that idea to just singing and dancing and weddings and some of these tropes. I do think there's an understanding, at least, that this is a major industry, of cinema, a major global force in cinema, and it's not to be ignored. But I also think that there's enough of us around the world, meaning uh, Indian people and people of the Indian diaspora. There's enough of us around the world who love these films and who support these films in the theater and watch them, on at home and with our families, that it doesn't matter really, who else understands it or buys into it. So, yeah, I don't think Hindi film is going anywhere.
Of course. Talking about Hindi cinema and the representation of Hindi cinema worldwide, I also would like to bring the factor of representation of Hindi cinema at Oscars, the latest example being RRR.
Uh-huh.
Why do you think it took so long for the world to actually finally acknowledge that this could also be a way of storytelling?
Documentary, you mean?
In general, I'm saying, like all the categories, the representation and the involvement of Indian cinema at the Academy Awards in the main categories. Like, so for RRRs this year is the example.
Right.
So, like, why do
Well,
you think
it's
it?
not the only example. There's two other films, Indian films, that are nominated. So,
Yeah,
um, RRR, of course, was a huge cultural phenomenon, and a beloved film, for good reason, around the world. But there are two other films that were also nominated
you
this year that
yourself were
have been
nominated.
nominated.
Yeah, you yourself were nominated in the
No, no, not
92nd.
Yeah, not me. I'm talking about this year. There's All That Breathes, the documentary All That
Yeah,
Breathes, that's
yeah,
from India.
yeah.
And The Elephant Whisperer is also another documentary from India that have been nominated for Oscars. So I think it's great, like these films collectively show the breadth of our storytelling capabilities, and of also, the different stories that can come from our culture. A film like Elephant Whisperers is so different from a film like All That Breathes, is so different from a film like RRR, and yet all of them are represented. Different parts of India, different languages, different mediums are represented at the Academy Awards, and it just shows how significant and how diverse our storytelling culture is.
Yeah. Shah Rukh Khan once said, he's the last of stars. He's the last of the stars. Do you think it's true? And what's your take on it?
He may be the last of a certain kind of star. It's hard to imagine anyone, following in his footsteps. But there will always be stars. There will always be stars. Just like there will always be movies, and technology will change, platforms will change, taste will change. But we're always going to. I don't think we're ever going to lose that joy of the collective experience of going to see a movie and celebrating the actors who we really connect with.
Yeah. So, Netflix is trending in several countries. It's actually trending. Is there any season two or on any other docu series on cards? Would you like to tell about any upcoming projects that you have?
Uh-huh. No, right now, honestly, I'm just taking a break. It's been,
Oh,
a long few years on this project and other projects, and I'm just trying to just enjoy a little bit of a break and then wait for inspiration to strike again.
Nice. On that note, we are gonna play a quick game. It's a segment. I'm gonna play the rapid fire with you.
Mm,
So shall we start?
sure.
Yeah. So my first question is, who is your all-time favorite actor and the current favorite actor in it?
All time favorite Shah Rukh Khan, current favorite Ayushmann Khurrana.
Yeah, he's good. And what about the actress, the all-time favorite actress and the current favorite actress?
All time favorite Kajol, current favorite Anushka Sharma.
Yeah, amazing. What's your favorite Yash Chopra and Adi Chopra movie?
Yash Chopra Chandani and Adi
Ah,
Chopra DDLJ.
of course, TDLs. It has become a brand now.
Yeah, exactly. You can't give any other answer. There's no other way to answer that question. So,
Yeah. Okay. So, if given a chance, would you want to direct a full-fledged Hindi film?
want to? Yes, of course. That would be a dream, but I would only do it if I really felt like I could be good at it and if I could really capture what I have loved so much about those movies. I'm in no rush, but certainly the desire is there.
Are there any scripts that you might be reading or writing for that?
No, not at the moment. No.
Okay. Which one would you choose, the romantics or the Indian matchmaking?
Oh, it's like asking me to choose between my children. I cannot.
Yeah. But like, oh, okay. If I have to ask, which was more fun, to work on, like fun on sets, which was more that?
Well, there wasn't, I mean, it's tough because they each had their own journeys, and Romantics was of course amazing because I got to interview all of these incredible huge stars that I'm such a big fan of. And Indian matchmaking is its own journey, it's really fun. It's like, it's unpredictable. We don't know what's going to happen and we're sort of filming a journey as it's unfolding, not trying to tell a story in retrospect, which is its own, form of fun and magic and chaos. So I love all of it. They're very different styles of shows. They're very different working processes, and I'm grateful that in my career I've been able to do both.
And they both become pretty huge after the release.
Yeah,
They're actually love, like they have their own set of fans, but the fan base is pretty large for both the shows.
yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
So, what would you choose, DDLJ or Chandni?
Oh, if I have to choose one between the two of them, or I have to, if I have to choose one, I have to choose DDLJ.
Yeah, it's a part of the memories that we've grown up with, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
One biopic that you want me to make if you want to
a biopic. It's a great question. I can't think of an answer. They put me on the spot.
make. You might have some favorites like that you might be in awe of some people's life. We all are, right? So maybe you could make on them, or is there any
Yeah.
other person?
I do have an idea, but I don't want to say it because I don't want anyone else to do it before I have a chance. So, but I do have someone in mind.
Okay, but any few names. Okay, okay. Let's not talk about the idea that you have, but any names that you have, in mind that okay, this is something. For example, that like in India, there are many biopics that have been made. Sanchu is there. There is one on Indira Gandhi that is being made. There are many names. There are many personalities that are being brought up on silver screen. Is there anyone that you would like to project on silver screen? In your way of filmmaking, which is really good.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, in terms of documentary, I would love, I think, the icons, of 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 our industry, I would love to examine their stories more closely, like Amitabh Bachchan, certainly Shah Rukh Khan, yeah, I think those would probably be, and I would love to also just do something on some of the big sort of icons of the South, like
Yeah.
a Rajnikant or something like that. That would be really incredible.
Yeah, yeah, nice. Okay, choose Madhuri Dixit or Sri Devi.
Choose in what way? What am I choosing?
Who's in overall manner, whose performances, whose movies have you enjoyed watching more, or in general also, who are you a bigger fan of?
I would say I hate these sort of choices between people because but I will say that Sri Devi has a very special place in my heart.
Course, yeah. Okay. Finally, Yash Chopra films or Adi Chopra films?
Oh goodness. Well, if we're talking about director to director,
Yes.
I would have to say Yash Chopra films just because there's so many more of them. So
Yeah, that was amazing. So lastly, I want to know, what do you think is the factor that makes Yash Chopra films, and I'm talking about the Yash Chopra films in general, like we talk about the studios that are
mhm,
not only directed by Adi Chopra, or not only that have been directed by Yash Chopra, also the ones being made under the banner
mhm.
that separate them from the rest of the movies being made in the same genre, in the romantic genre.
I mean, I think, there is a real the sort of passion, that Yash Chopra had for telling compelling stories, for taking a poetic look at life, and really, his films were very inclusive. They were not judgmental of their characters. They were, they really, I think that ethos exists in all of the filmmakers, that have come through Yash Raj Studios, and I think audiences can really sense that. They can feel that, just that absolute love, for movies, and that respect for the audience. I think that's what makes Yash Raj films special.
Amazing, amazing. So this brings us to the end. It was amazing talking to you, Smriti. I personally like the Romantics. I watched it. I actually binge watched it because we have all grown up watching Yash Chopra movies, and romantic genre is the most comfortable genre. Also, it makes you feel good. And while watching the Romantics, we could all just see what might have happened, behind a certain scene, or behind a certain film, or behind a, with a certain star. It was amazing with it. And
Thank you.
hopefully we see many more such projects coming out from you, being directed by you. It was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Same here. Thank you. Bye bye.